Joined now by the national editor of the Daily Hive in the Offside Sports vertical, Rob the Vroom Vroom guy on Twitter. Rob Williams, fresh from the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal.
Are you going to change your beat?
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be bad. Send me to Monaco and
True. The travel's good.
Yeah. Bahrain and all the rest. Be a good way to see the world.
It's the best beat in sports journalism. You get to every part of the world and some really cool cities. So, yeah, welcome back. Glad you survived the rain there in Montreal. We're talking Vancouver Canucks here, and first, Rob, you see two paths here as they enter free agency, and in fact, it was paths that Blake and I were debating yesterday. So tell us the roads taken here and the road not taken from the Canucks heading into free agency.
Yeah, it's going to be the subject of my article today, and it's just like, what philosophical path are they going to go down, right? And I think you look at what they did last season, it was volume and value, and they hit it out of the park, right? They brought in guys like Susie, Cole, and Bluger all on July 1st, all for a pretty good price, all for short term. And that gave them depth, that gave them penalty killers, and it changed kind of the makeup of their team. What do they look for now, though, where they kind of have more of the framework of a playoff team, and they're looking to get, like, are they going to try to add another, piece to the Stanley Cup puzzle? And when I say that, I mean a guy like Jake Guentzel. And you think about what are the components of a Stanley Cup, and which ones of those do they have? They have a lot of the main pieces, right? They've got the Vezina level goalie, they've got the Norris Trophy D, they've got two top centers, they've got a scoring winger in Besser. They're probably missing, they've got Hronek on D, they're probably missing another top four defenseman, and they're definitely missing at least one more scoring winger, like maybe a couple, but definitely one more elite one. And if you can go out and get Guentzel and add that one more piece to the puzzle, you're probably gonna have to pay big money. Like, is he going to cost $9 million? Is he going to command 7 years that pays 36? Perhaps. But there's the Pittsburgh connection, there's the Tocchet connection. Is that a guy that you can convince to come to Vancouver? That might not be available every single year. So I do wonder, like, is this the time to really go for it and then try to go cheap in other areas and hopefully, as Alvin said, find the next Dakota Joshua?
Well, we had this chat yesterday.
We had this debate yesterday.
Yeah.
And see, I'm on the more depth is needed, more volume and value. You're not quite there yet.
And I was on the difference maker side.
Blake's on the difference maker side. Rob, which side are you on?
I think, there's risk on both, right?
Yep.
You can go for the mid-range guy and end up with Ilya Mikheyev. You can try to go for one of the big name guys and end up with Louis Eriksson, right? So I do see risk on both ends. I think you want to have as much certainty as possible, right? If you bring in a guy like Guentzel, you know him, that this management group knows him, Tocchet knows him, he's likely to fit into what you're doing. It was, similar, I think, to what they were thinking when they brought in Lindholm. Rutherford knew him well. I think you just want to make sure that you're not bringing in a guy that's going to fall off a cliff. You don't want a Jonathan Huberdeau situation. So like, is a guy like Sam Reinhart, is his values at an all-time high right now? Like, are you going to be paying for, top dollar on Sam Reinhart when in a totally different situation, he's, he comes crashing back down to earth? You want to make sure that if you're going to swing for that home run, that you at least hit a triple, right? Like, you can't commit big money and big term and then just be regretting it a year or two later. So I think if you've got some mid-range guys that you feel really comfortable with and that you think can really be difference makers for you, and you add a couple second liners rather than the one first liner, then I can see it. But it's such a hard thing to say until you know the dollar figures, until you know like what the offers are. But Jake Guentzel to me is very, very intriguing because I think he's exactly the type of player that they need.
I honestly think Sam Reinhart might have made himself $3 million this season per year.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because if he sets a career high at 35 goals this year, I mean, what's he making? He's making Guentzel money,
right? If that, probably not that. Yeah,
it's crazy.
See, my point about adding Guentzel, like, take a look at the Leafs. Top heavy, paying all the forwards, have been good enough, really, even to get to round 2, other than one time. Look at Edmonton right now. Even with Draisaitl and McDavid, top heavy, down 2-0 in the Stanley Cup final. I know Pittsburgh previously won it as a reasonably top heavy team, salary structure wise. I just, when I think of Tocchet style hockey, and I think of more depth through the lineup with a healthy Thatcher Demko in the playoffs, I just think that's a better route for these Vancouver Canucks.
These are strange times, though. Like, the multiple games in these playoffs, the Edmonton Oilers haven't got to 20 shots.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, what are we even talking about here? They're a top-heavy team with 2 of the best offensive players ever born, and they can't get to 20 shots someday. So I don't even know what we're arguing for in terms of what the Canucks need in terms of difference makers.
But doesn't that tell you something? That, because Miller and Pettersson are not those guys.
No.
So I have.
But you do need some offense. You do need to be able to score the goal,
which is
and the
why
Canucks,
I'm for sort of sprinkling it more through the lineup and creating a little more depth and trying to win defensive games.
Or do you just flush it out, Rob, with like a top or a 6-man defense core that is par excellence? Do you sign Roenick and sign Brett Pesce and leave the forwards alone and get $3 million forwards to sprinkle through the top 9?
It's such a tough decision. I do think when you look at the list of free agents that there's more wingers available probably than anything else. There's not a ton of options when you're looking at centers. There's not a ton of options when you're looking at D. So I do wonder if you're going to pay through the nose for the few available guys that are there. It was interesting the path that they went on with defense this last season. And I was really concerned about their defense coming into the year. And you look at what they did where, I think after they got Zadorov, I kind of thought, geez, they might be okay here. And they had a top pairing, a legitimate top pairing. And they kind of had like two B pairings, like second or third line. How many of those other 4 are bona fide top 4 defensemen? You can make the case that they're like, I think you had like 4 guys that were really like a 4 or 5 guy, right? Rather than a 3 or 4. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, like what's the best fit for Pettersson? Is it Guentzel and find somebody else like Höglander or Mikheyev, somebody and that's your second line, or is it can you make it up with like a Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Toffoli, like some sort of mix like that? Can you get those 2 guys for kind of the price of Guentzel?
That's it.
That could be a better second line, but again, you've got to take into account a lot of different things here. Toffoli would be age, and the guys that are like 28, 29, they're probably going to command a lot of term. Is that the way to go?
And you're not getting faster, right? They mentioned speed a bunch of times. Besser is not fast. If you got Besser and Toffoli as your top 2 wingers, neither of those guys can skate.
Which brings me to Patrik Laine, Rob. He is available for trade. Now, he is still in the player assistance program, but he is available for trade. He wants a fresh start. Both the agent and the Columbus Blue Jackets are working to make it such. He is still a big ticket, albeit just this coming season. And one more, and he might be an offloading ground for the Ilya Mikheyev contract. What do you think? Should the Canucks be interested in Patrik Laine?
I think Laine is an intriguing player, and there's big, big potential. That what if just he's been in not a great situation in Columbus? What if he leaves that comes somewhere else, has more talented players to play with, has a better center to play with. He hasn't really had, a ton of help there in Columbus. What if he's put in the right situation and he explodes? And if that happens, you look at, Laine's, he's not going to be, I don't think Columbus is not going to give him away, but his value has never been lower. Like, he's never been more affordable to acquire in his entire career than right now, I would argue. But in saying that, what do the Canucks have to give up?
Yeah, they don't have a middle prospect. Right? I mean, I guess a Ratu would be, or a Podkolzin along,
something like that.
Something like
that. Who are the prospects that you're excited about coming to the Canucks right now? Like Lekaramaki and Willander, I guess.
Overpayment. That's overpayment for
and that's
you're not going there. Yeah. You're not going there.
And that's too much. But then if you look after that, like you said, there's nothing really after that.
No.
You look at their drafts from like recent years. Like they have given up a lot of draft picks. This upcoming draft, our writer Noah Strang put together a piece. Like, they're at the near bottom 5 in the league in terms of draft pick value coming up at this draft. Like, they just traded their first round, and and this is the rub for when everyone was excited about getting Lindholm, and I thought it was a maybe a worthwhile gamble at the time, but you give up your first round pick there. You don't have that chip to play this offseason. They gave up futures to get Zadorov. They made a lot of those moves already, on short-term moves. And hey, they had a great season and made a nice little playoff run. But you can't make that move every year. So I think that's not a luxury that they'll be able to afford right now, unless there's roster players that can make it happen. And I don't see a fit for players that Columbus wants right now.
I think you'd be sending them Mikheyev and saying part of what you're getting on this Columbus is the cap space over the next couple of years.
Go shopping.
The difference between Laine at 8.7 and Mikheyev at 4.7. So you'd be giving them nearly $4 million per cap space per season, and then you'd be attaching sort of a middle, a mid prospect or a middle round pick, and say, there you go. May not be enough. Someone may be head over heels with Patrik Laine, think him, still the 40 goal scorer or even 30 goal scorer previous in his career. But, I think it's worth exploring. I agree with you on that.
Is it going to be like Mikheyev, Shilovs, and a third round pick? Is that like the new Raymond Ballard in a second?
No, because Shilovs is your backup goaltender. I don't think you're going there.
You capitalize on a guy like sort of a Hunter Brestevich kind of trade in Kirill Kudratsev. Do you
or
attach
Minio or EPD or as you say, Ratu? If they believe in putt goals, and I think you have to look at that as well. So I think there's different concoctions here. Not sure it's the combination that's going to get it done, but it's worth exploring.
But let's just drill down. Are you okay with the risk of the player? Because you could come here, you could go right back into the player's assistance program, and you could have nothing to show for the trade. Are you okay with that risk?
I think you need to do your homework on that aspect and have some level of comfort about what you're doing.
Ultimately, if it gets too out of hand, of course, you can terminate the contract too, right? So you do have that as an extreme.
If Columbus is ready to give him away from Mikheyev plus a C prospect or something like that, like, absolutely take the risk. That's a really talented player. He's still young. He's very, very accomplished in his career. If you think that you can put him in a position to succeed in Vancouver, absolutely, I'd take a swing at that. I'm just concerned about what it's going to cost to get him and what you have to give up.
And those are fair considerations. Rob Williams, just want to invite you over to my crib, 6 a.m. for the next F1 race. Okay, coffee, bacon, eggs will be served because I know you're such a convert now. And we'll talk to you on this show.
Sounds great.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.